Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to What's Next with Lacey. This week, I am so excited to welcome the amazing Amelia. Oh, love that alliteration. Amelia works in health tech at a company called Creo as a product owner. Don't worry, she goes into what all of that means in the episode. Honestly, because of how well she described her work and her journey in our conversation, I don't want to spend too long on this intro. All you really need to know is what I've already told you, and she takes it from there. So, without further ado, here is Amelia. Enjoy. Amelia, it is so good to see you. Welcome to What's Next.
Lacey, it is such an honor to be here with you today. I am such a fan of What's Next. You have interviewed such an impressive breadth of guests, and if I am on your shortlist of young professionals, I know I'm doing something right. So it is such an honor to be here with you today.
You, of course, make it on the list. I am so glad that you are here and you are taking time out of your very, very busy day. I want to start off by talking actually about how we know each other because it is career related. It was my first job at college. Yeah, my first job at college. Was the CBA your first job at college?
It was indeed.
It was the perfect first job. We were...
Drum roll.
Mixology teachers. That's how I like to say it. Is that how you would say it?
Wow. I say bartenders, but mixology teacher has a much better ring to it. And you were a fantastic teacher.
Why, thank you. I certainly know my alcohol. That is for sure. The reason why I say mixology teacher is because I actually did not very few, but I mainly taught for the Columbia Bartending Agency, CBA, instead of doing our gigs. So I did a bit of both, obviously, but I mainly taught and I loved the teaching. But for those who don't know, the Columbia Bartending Agency was an agency where you sent out Columbia students to various different private gigs around New York, and we bartended. We also had a course that we taught and got you your bartending license. That could be open to anyone, Columbia students or non-Columbia students. And it was the best gig ever. The money you made was awesome. But you had a more important role. You were on like the e-board. Remind me what you did?
My formal role was agency manager on the executive board. So I would take the event requests that came in from clients across the city. I would do a little bit of vetting. For example, if it is New York City holiday season and you are offering a rate below $40 an hour, I'm probably turning you down. I'm so sorry. But then we would just go through a randomized process and assign bartenders, lovely bartenders like Lacey, to these events. And I had a lot of fun. I learned so much about organization, project management, people delegation. We also had just an incredible time setting up events. So for example, we had the opportunity to actually staff a music festival, Octfest, I believe the name was.
Yes.
2 years in a row. Incredible. It was just a really great formative experience. And I carry a lot of those skills with me today.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you were essentially running it was a very big group. It was a very big business. How many bartenders did we have?
I feel like it was 200. Don't quote me on that, fellow e-board managers, but I recall 200.
That is a lot. And indeed, we got so many requests. I remember once I got tipped at a holiday party $20 just because of my accent. He was like, it was my very first gig. I opened my mouth and I was like, "What would you like, sir?" And he goes, $20. Amazing accent. I was like, damn, is this going to be what it's like for the rest of my time here? Like, this is awesome.
For the listeners of What's Next, Lacey's Venmo will be in the description. Please send her $20 for her wonderful, wonderful voice.
I know. I really should be capitalizing on that. Anyway. Now, moving into what you do now, a bit of a pivot. You are in health tech. So I'm not going to lie, that could mean a lot of things. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it means and what it means for you. So why don't we start there? What is the space that you're working in under this health tech umbrella? What's the mission that you are currently working towards?
So to start off really, really high level, to define health tech very broadly, I like to think of it as the intersection of healthcare and technology. So health tech companies like mine, not mine, I work there. Health tech companies use software, data, digital tools to improve how healthcare is delivered, accessed, and managed. So this can include everything from electronic health records. When you go see the doctor, you typically have all of your doctor notes and your lab results. All of that is typically online, electronic, so that you can send to and from different hospital systems. This can also include telemedicine platforms, wearable devices, AI diagnostics, and what my company does, clinical research tools. So, at a very, very high level, mission wise, companies in the health tech space are working towards a shared mission. We want to make healthcare more efficient, effective, and above all, patient centric. So, this can translate to goals like reducing administrative burden on providers, increasing access to care for patients, improving health outcomes through better data, accelerating innovation, or my company, enabling groundbreaking clinical trials. The work always ties back to improving lives through smarter healthcare.
That industry is doing some incredibly important work, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that your company is specifically working on clinical research trials, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific focus within that? Like, can you get more focused than that? Or is it kind of the technology that you're building kind of applies to all? This goes to show how little I know about this space.
That's all right. Let's back it up. I will zoom out and we'll start there. So the company I work for, we're a startup called CRIO, CRIO, clinicalresearch.io. And what we do, as the IO might suggest, we make software for clinical research trials. And clinical research trials are generally, I'm generalizing here, so any clinical research gurus out here, call me out in the comments. These are aimed at developing drugs and therapies for consumers. So think Moderna and Pfizer's COVID vaccines. So if we start at a super high level, let's say I've got a pharmaceutical company called Lacey Pharma, and they develop a new medicine called What's Next. This medicine has to go through a really rigorous clinical trial process before it ever reaches a broader market. And these clinical trials are designed to answer two really fundamental questions. Is this drug safe? And does it actually work? So in order to figure that out, Lacey Pharma will write up a protocol. A protocol, think of it like a schedule of events. So a hyper-simplistic one, a subject like Amelia comes in for a screening visit to confirm that they're eligible, then they receive the treatment, and then they're monitored over time for improvements or side effects. In order to gather enough data about subjects, that protocol is then distributed to research sites across the country and honestly, even globally.
Wow.
These sites could be independent clinics, like I'm Dr. Amelia. I own a research clinic, I see subjects, and I enroll them in trials. It could be academic medical centers like our alma mater, could be big hospitals. And each of these research sites is responsible for recruiting patients, following that protocol, and collecting subject data. That data ultimately informs whether or not this treatment, What's Next, gets approved by regulators like the FDA. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, definitely.
Clinical research tools, that's where CRIO comes in. So our company, we're focused on transforming how that trial data, so how is subject Amelia doing on the treatment? What side effects? How effective is the treatment? We are trying to transform how that data is captured and managed. So for a bit of context, after college, I actually did clinical research. There's a role called a coordinator. It's not quite a nurse, not quite a doctor, but you are just there to facilitate and collect data. So if a subject comes in, I might take their vitals, I might draw their blood, send that off to the lab, help them administer the medications. I'm just there to help facilitate and collect data. When I did that, I was doing that on paper. So when you go to a hospital today, the doctors typically have these iPads or computers. But when I did clinical research, I was literally taking notes on a clipboard, pen or pencil, and paper. It was a little bit ridiculous and so old-fashioned.
Is that even now to this day?
To this day, 2025, the year of our Lord 2025, the industry standard at many research sites is still paper.
That is crazy.
Is crazy. I know electronic medical records, so again, lab results when you go to the ER, God forbid, that was invented and made popular like 50 years ago, I think. And clinical research is kind of just now catching up and collecting data electronically. So I'm really excited by what our company does. Electronic data capture is just one of the tools that we offer in our suite of products. So instead of using paper data collection, which requires coordinators like me to manually enter data into multiple systems in order to report it back to Lacey Pharma, our Creo platform allows research sites to capture data once, directly at the point of care while the subject is face-to-face in front of us, and immediately share it back to sponsors like Lacey Pharma. We offer this all-in-one solution that helps with everything from recruiting patients, scheduling patients, regulatory compliance, financial tracking. We also enable real-time data review and monitoring. Our big picture mission is to make clinical trials faster, higher quality, and more patient-centric, ultimately streamlining medicine what's next path to market.
That must be so desirable, though. That must be like taking over the industry, because it just seems to me that it would make these trials so much more successful and easier and save so much time.
I'm a huge Creo fangirl, if I can be so transparent, because when I was working at the research site, I mentioned how for many of my trials, I would have to collect data on paper, which would then amass in these gigantic binders that I would always get binder cuts on, these giant binders stuffed full of paper subject notes. And also it's clinical trial like data, so it's data that can't be destroyed. Those binders have to live on in this back room that we never talk about, storage closet for 15 plus years. However, there were a few trials in which I was allowed to use this fun little software called Creo to recruit and enroll subjects. I was such a fan. It opened my eyes to, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing. This makes my life so much easier as a coordinator, not just for data collection, but also overall trial management. Trials come with money. You have to keep track of stipends you pay to your subjects. You have to keep track of payments the sponsors may make to you, recruiting, scheduling, all of my regulatory documentation, all of that can be done electronically. Oh my goodness. I can integrate that with my personal calendar, my personal work calendar, or my inbox. It really revolutionized the way I work. So I'm really, really honored and grateful to be working here at Creo.
I'm honestly still reeling over the fact that still so many of these trials are using pen and paper and storing the information in a storage closet. That just does not seem to like match with this just technological advancement that we are seeing in other industries. So Creo really does have an incredible product on their hand, and I can't wait to see how much of a difference it really does make. So that is what your company is doing overall. I want to zoom in and focus on you and your work that you are doing for them. Right now, you are working as a product owner, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Talk me through that. I feel like that could mean a lot of things. What does it mean to you?
As product owner for Creo's data collection tool, so I do focus specifically on the data collection tool, I'm responsible for making sure that our product evolves and grows in a way that delivers meaningful value to research sites, sponsors like Lacey Pharma, and clinical research organizations. I like to think of myself as acting as a bridge between our end users, who, again, I used to be, and our engineering and our quality assurance or QA teams. So I will take client feedback, internal ideas. Side note, so many of my wonderful colleagues also came from the clinical research space. So they also have really fantastic improvements and ideas of their own. So I'll take feedback, business goals. I'll take all of that and translate them into clear, prioritized development work. What I mean by development work is essentially code work. So, new features that we're coding or bug fixes to fix any sort of technical debt we might have accumulated. So, I help define the product vision. This year, we want to accomplish XYZ. We break that down into quarterly goals. And then I work with my team in 2-week blocks of time. We call these sprints. So, sprints can be different amounts of time at different tech companies. It's generally 2 weeks. But I work with our team in these 2-week blocks to actually deliver features and bug fixes. To go a bit more like day to day, every single day, not weekends excluded, I'll check in with our engineers and our QAs to unblock issues and make sure we're aligned. What are you working on, Lacey? Oh, your ticket can't be worked on until Amelia's ticket is done. Let's troubleshoot that together. I'll also help coordinate some cross-functional conversations to make sure that what we're building is feasible, compliant, and impactful. So a big part of the job, as you might imagine, is kind of backlog. And by backlog, I mean like stuff we'd love to work on. A big part of the job is backlog management, deciding what we work on next and making sure the work is ready to go. It's really important for me to lead what we call retrospectives or retros at the end of each 2-week sprint so that as a team, we can reflect and what went well, what didn't, what's next, and continuously improve our process. It's strategy, communication, organization. I'm here to make sure we're building the right things and we build them really well.
It kind of sounds like you are a similar role might be, would you say, like a product manager that happens at like these like tech companies, who's basically the grand central station of or maybe not a product manager, a project manager, the like grand central station of these projects, of these engineering teams, and and the rest of the company, to make sure that like everything is happening according to what everyone else wants and everyone else's goals.
Absolutely. And you do pick up on something that I get asked all the time, which is what's the difference between a product manager and a product owner?
Yeah.
I would say, academically speaking, product managers are very strategic. They'll focus on the vision, the company objectives, and market trends. And product owners, like myself, are a little bit more granular and in the weeds. So we'll translate that strategy into, okay, great. Right now, as we're recording this, it's the end of Q2 of the year. So I am deep into quarterly planning for Q3. What are actionable tasks and work and tickets that my engineering team can execute in order to meet those requirements? That being said, I work in a relatively small startup. And so everybody kind of like wears multiple hats. If you're listening to this and you work in a startup or a small company, you know what it's like. So the line is quite blurred. Sometimes I report directly, to leadership. Sometimes I'll be working very closely with the customer experience teams. The line is quite blurred in a startup like mine, between product management and product owner. I don't really let semantics get in the way. I'm just excited to be building.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And building such an incredible product. On that note, with the lines being so blurred, you must feel like you are learning so much and using so many different skills. And like you said, wearing so many different hats. So what would you say are some skills that you are using on a daily basis to help you in your work?
For sure. I want to talk about 3, if I may.
Of course.
So greedy. But number 1, strong communication is probably the number 1 skill I have to use every day. Whether I'm writing user stories, so we need to build this way because as a coordinator, I used to do XYZ, so I need a tool that's going to help me accomplish that. I also need strong communication skills when I'm presenting demos, either internally or externally, or even while I'm facilitating that daily, what we call stand-up or scrum meeting, where I'm meeting with the team and asking what's going right, what's going wrong, how can we troubleshoot together. I also rely heavily on organization skills that I, again, built as agency manager of the Columbia Bartending Agency.
Yeah, you did.
To manage priorities and keep our backlog healthy and visible. I think the ability to synthesize complex feedback into actionable plans has been a really big differentiator. That being said, the biggest skill that's helped me succeed, and what I've seen translate into success for my direct reports as well, is a strong bias towards action. I am a huge believer in learning by doing, rolling up my sleeves and jumping in, even when I don't feel 100% ready. Like, do it scared. When I first started at Creo, I obviously did not start as product owner. I had zero tech experience. I came in as an ex-pre-med, and I actually came in as a support agent. So on a website, there's that little like question mark on the bottom of the page where it's like, chat with the bot. It's not a bot. It's a real human. It was me.
No way. Wait, I always thought those are bots. Is it
There's
actually?
sometimes bots.
There's sometimes bots. That's so wild. That was what you started off as. Oh my gosh.
We did that for sometimes 12 hours a day, but I loved it. It was like a little bit of a video game because there's a time pressure, right? If I don't answer fast enough, they're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
There's also like the puzzle of, interesting, I have no idea why you're getting that error message, but I have a test environment, like with fake data. Let me try to reproduce the steps that you just described and see if I can get the same error message. It was so addicting. I'm not crazy, I swear. But it was so fun. Even though I barely knew anything about tech, I barely knew how to read code. And shout out to the clients that were on live chat. Really, thank you so much for your patience, because I would just be upfront. I was pretty young at the time, first job out of college. I would just straight up be like, I don't know. Let's figure it out together. Let's try to break and reverse engineer the system together. But my point is, the mindset of jumping in before you're ready, rolling up your sleeves, that really helped me develop such an intricate level of product knowledge, which of course has been the undercurrent of my success here at Creo. The mindset towards bias towards action helped me grow from support agent to product owner. It helped me continuously demonstrate my value. So being naturally curious, always trying to learn how a backend service works to how users are experiencing a workflow. I think ultimately what's made me super effective is the combination of empathy for users, I used to be one, adaptability, and a willingness to just iterate on feedback. Try, maybe fail, try again.
I want to ask, because I feel like this is something I've actually thought a lot of when I'm thinking about specifically tech, like product manager, product owner jobs. How much of the code do you know? Do you need to know any of it, or are you really on that kind of higher level management side?
It completely varies by position. There are some incredible product owners and product managers, many of whom are my mentors right at Creo, who have actually built the code from scratch. They were here since the beginning. They've built it. And so when I shadow some of their meetings, they will be asking questions that are like, but what about that one ticket from that one specific line of code from 5.5 years ago? And I'm like, what is going on? So it really varies, and it varies company to company, of course. I'll be really transparent. My technical skills stop at being able to read code. I started a computer science minor at our alma mater. I stopped when the pandemic made everything online, and I said, I'm not going to take classes anymore.
Fair enough.
But I think it comes down to being willing to ask the right questions. And shout out to my engineering team and my QA testers. They are so supportive. I will straight up be like, again, that's that bias towards action. If I don't get something, I will straight up be like, hey, y'all, I know this is super obvious, but what was that phrase you just used? And then I'll do some sort of research and figure out, what is regex? Oh, now I know.
Yeah.
Or I'll just be like, hey, lovely engineer, team lead, I don't understand this block of code in GitHub. I'm just not getting it. Can you run me through the logic? And why is this such a big deal for the ticket? Being willing to ask those questions it's so scary and it's so embarrassing, but we all start somewhere.
Totally. No, I think it's such an important part of work and a work environment is being able to and feeling comfortable to ask questions, and also being willing to learn. I think both of those things need to exist in a successful working environment, and I think it's so important. But that sounds, yeah, that I've always wondered, but it does make sense that it would kind of vary, and maybe some engineers, I'm assuming, would decide to become
Oh, yeah.
product managers and do this type of work. So I want to talk a little bit about the startup environment. You mentioned it is a smaller startup environment. I'm assuming it's also like a really nice team environment. Like, how is it? Do you like working in a startup?
This is one of the best company cultures I have ever worked in. I know that can't be said for all startups, but I truly adore everybody I work with. I joined when we were small enough. I wasn't one of the original folks, but I did join early enough when it did feel a little bit like a family, not in a toxic way. Work life balance is important, friends, but it did feel like we were all really excited to be building something together. We were all on live chat for, frankly, too many hours of the day, but we were all so passionate about getting this thing off the ground and watching it succeed. And so it really feel like we all had a shared vision and we were working towards the same mission. Ours is a bit harder to answer because my company I have the wonderful privilege of working completely remote. I am 100% location independent. So the hours I work depends not only on what time zone I'm in. I love traveling domestically and internationally with my work, but that also means my colleagues are scattered literally all over the globe.
Wow.
I personally, I do my best work when I have no meetings, like I can just be in focused, deep work mode. I try to get 1 to 4 hours of deep work in a day, depending on what it is that I have to get done. So I'll usually wake up kind of early. I'm a sunrise girly. So I'll usually wake up around 6 a.m., get my work in for the day, and then I'll just kind of take calls whenever people are online, answer messages whenever people are online. Usually this is 10 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, complete location independence. So if I don't have a meeting during lunch, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a nice New York City walk. So yeah, the hours can really vary. When I was doing live chat on the support team, or when we were a bit smaller, a bit leaner, so everybody was juggling multiple roles, I'll be honest, there were some 12-hour days. That's the nature of the startup. But at that stage, everybody really had that passion and fire for getting this thing off the ground.
Do you take advantage of remote work? Are you one of those people who is traveling and being like, well, I can work anywhere, so let me go anywhere?
Absolutely. I'm so lucky I get to see my family whenever I want to. Mel Robbins calls our 20s, the great scattering, where all our friends are in different stages of life. And I've kind of shielded myself from that because just last week I was in Seattle. 2 weeks ago, I think I mentioned to you when we were scheduling, I was in Iceland with some friends. I have friends all over the globe. And I just personally, I think I live in my New York City studio 50% of the time, which is a horrible use of money, horrible use of rent money. But I'm just so privileged that I can travel and be with the people that I love.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've always thought that I would, if I ever was fully remote, I would be similar. I will say I am a routine girl. I can barely even figure my way through my own routine staying in New York, let alone building a new routine with work by traveling and working from different locations. So it's very impressive. I don't think I actually ever would be that kind of person, but I love the idea of it. So I'm living vicariously through your freedom, through your traveling. What are some of the challenges that you face? You speak so positively and it sounds like it is such awesome work, but as you said, you're learning on the job. You must face some challenges in this role.
I do remember that the founder of Rise, I want to make sure, Giovanna Ventola.
Yeah.
Love that episode. But when she...
Thank you.
I'm a real fan.
That is amazing. That is a deep cut. I love Giovanna. She's amazing.
Everybody listen. But when I heard it, she had the exact same answer for me for challenge, which is wanting to do everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like triaging competing priorities. Every stakeholder, whether it's a client, sales rep, engineer, everybody has a different opinion on what's most important, and they're all valid. So in product, you really have to listen, negotiate, and sometimes say no while keeping that broader vision in mind. So when it's ambiguous, timelines are tight, the problem isn't clearly defined, it's difficult. And another layer on top of that is this is clinical research data. This is like one of the most tightly regulated industries out there. So we need to align compliance requirements with user needs. So you can't just build fast. We have to build smart and safely. So a lot of times I feel like people outside of the industry might not realize how much negotiation and consensus building happens behind the scenes. There's a lot of driving alignment between very different audiences. And it can be taxing, especially because, again, I care really deeply about doing right by my end users and by my teammates. But that is also what makes the job so rewarding. It is complex, high stakes, and collaborative.
It's absolutely fascinating to just hear about all the different functions and all the different pieces that it takes to build a product and this product. And I could see how that is challenging, like in and of itself is challenging. What are you most excited about for your work at Creo, for Creo in general, for health tech? Like, this is such an industry that is like moving around a lot and developing so much. What are you looking forward to?
I know I've said this already and I sound like what is the phrase? Broken cycle? I don't even know. But broken record. I can speak English. Sometimes that English second language insecurity comes out at the worst times, like a podcast.
Well, you're doing great. You are speaking more eloquently than I am with English as my first language. So
you have the accent to cover for you, though.
Well, exactly. My British accent just always makes people think I sound smart, and I'll take it.
I really do love that the work I'm doing has a tangible, real impact on the clinical research space. I think back to like fresh out of college, coordinator me manually writing subject notes, and now I get to design tools that streamline that exact process. It is so incredibly fulfilling to work on something that makes researchers' jobs easier. It brings treatments to patients faster. I love the creative problem solving that comes with product work. Every sprint, every ticket, it's almost like a new puzzle to solve. Looking ahead, I'm really excited by how tech, not even necessarily just our company, but just how there's tech making trials more decentralized, more inclusive, especially with innovations in, making recruitment more widespread or making recruitment more effective, and of course, patient-centric. I really do believe we're on the cusp of a transformation in how clinical research is conducted, and I am so thrilled to have a small part in shaping that future. This field is maturing, but there is so much room left for innovation. And of course, I truly love working with the brilliant, passionate colleagues across all of these different disciplines. Every day, I get to learn something new, and that keeps me so energized and excited.
Thank you guys so much for listening so far. If you are enjoying this episode, which how could you not be, please spread the word of what's next. You can text, Insta DM, email, carrier pigeon, whatever method floats your boat, but please share the link to this episode, or any of my episodes for that matter, with anyone you think might be interested. I am trying to grow a business here, so any help would be much appreciated. You guys are the best. Enjoy the rest of the episode. I want to now turn to your journey. You've mentioned, we've discussed a little bit, but you did not start out as a product owner. So why did you decide to make this jump into this space?
I started off as a pre-medical student. I studied biology. So I thought I wanted to go to medical school and be a neurologist like my mom. In undergrad, in addition to my favorite extracurricular, which was on record, the Columbia Bartending Agency, I also worked in wet lab research. So I studied developmental genetics. That made me really interested in applying the scientific method. Other extracurriculars lean towards entrepreneurship like the CBA or teaching. I taught at high schools. Those helped me boost my public speaking and communication skills. As I've already discussed at length, I started working as a clinical research coordinator right after college, helping recruit patients for trials, conduct their visits with my investigator, and kind of just help with overall trial management. Some of my trials, as I mentioned, were on paper, old fashioned. Some of my trials, I could use Creo. That's where I first saw that power of electronic data collection, electronic trial management. And from my experience, I saw how powerful a tool like Creo could be. That's honestly why I made the switch. I knew firsthand how challenging trial execution could be. I wanted to make a bigger impact, and I loved that Creo was creating solutions that eliminated a lot of the inefficiencies that I saw, improved compliance, and really let me, as somebody delivering that. I'm sorry, I was not delivering the healthcare. I was facilitating a doctor delivering the care, but it allowed us as a team to focus on conducting high quality research and developing better patient outcomes.
I'm absolutely fascinated by your work as this support agent that you started off with at Creo. I firstly want to know, like, how did that come about? That seems like such a unique job to be the person behind that chatbot. How did that come about? You were working in research and then you went into being a support agent for this awesome company?
I begged. That's it. It was please, please, please. I love what y'all are doing. I love the mission here at Creo. Give me any role. I have no experience in tech, but please, please, I will take literally anything. I just wanted in on what they were doing. And frankly, this was when Creo was small enough that everybody did live chat. My favorite story is one of our head honcho engineers. If you're listening, you know who you are. He used to be a little sassy on live chat. He'll be like, oh, the engineer will fix that for you now. And then he'll fix it and then come back. The engineering team has fixed it for you. All while the client has no idea they are talking to the person fixing it for them.
Well, exactly.
And, as a support agent, I built such deep product knowledge and I really learned how to troubleshoot under pressure. It made me completely unafraid. It made me realize, I'm so sorry to my clients if you're listening. It made me realize no question is too dumb. Like, no question is too dumb to ask. And I think that's what gave me the courage to just speak up and ask questions. Because if I'm asking, I know somebody else is also wondering. But support agent wasn't my only role at Creo before product manager. I went support agent, and then we didn't have a support team. As I mentioned, everybody did live chat. It was all hands on deck. At one point, I was sitting at the Thanksgiving table with my laptop out. Like, I'm so sorry, everybody carved the turkey without me, but I'm literally on call right now.
Wow.
Support team. I founded the support team because I was like, you know what? We should have a formal team for this. We should not be bothering the head honchos with live chat. So I founded our support team. I developed such an intricate level of product knowledge thanks to live chat and thanks to, kind of reverse engineering the system on a daily basis. And I really wanted to have the ability to use my knowledge for more advanced trainings or consultations. So, like, interesting, Dr. Lacey, y'all do XYZ, very interesting. Okay, we haven't seen that before, but our tool can probably help. And so it would be my job as what we call the quote solutions consultant to then try to set up our platform and our tools in a way. How does this look? Does this work for your hyper specific workflows? Or, ooh, you ran into a compliance issue with XYZ. Yeah, you'll want to avoid that for future trials. Let me show you how our software can help prevent that in the future. So I was this fun, solo lone wolf solutions consultant. I was kind of bouncing around between the customer experience team and the sales team. Sometimes the sales team would be selling to these very nitpicky prospects who are we really need to see this specific thing. And so they might pull me in to give a very, very technical demo. That was also very cool. I had no sales experience. Again, that whole growth mindset, beginner's mind, willing to learn. I inhaled as many sales technique books as I could. From there, I founded the consulting team and I made the jump over into product. I didn't take a very traditional path over into product.
Yeah.
I think all of those experiences have made me more effective. the scenic route was definitely quite useful for me.
I wonder, is that a part of working at a startup that you had the freedom and flexibility to kind of build these roles for yourself, learn these skills, and go into this work?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a normal path really exists in a startup. I'm biased, or I guess I'm limited in my experience to just this one startup, but each of the roles I was in, I really focused on building as much career capital as I could. And each of those roles ultimately gave me a different lens on our product, whether it's technical, operational, commercial. They help me build trust across colleagues on different teams, which is absolutely essential in a product role. So I became kind of cross functionally fluent. I was just as comfortable talking to leadership, sales, customer experience, the actual end user. And when you've lived your user's experience and you speak their language, it is so much easier to treat them with empathy and prioritize their needs. It also taught me how to coach and manage people, which helped me support and motivate. I had some direct reports on the consulting team, and now my peers, my engineering and QA peers at my product role.
We've talked a bit about you being on the other side of this product. So let's talk a little bit about your that research experience. How was that? Did you enjoy it? What exactly were you doing?
If you don't mind, I kind of want to zip backwards an extra step. So before I was doing clinical research, I was doing what we call wet lab research. And it just means I was doing like basic science research in a lab, the stereotype in a lab coat with the cell cultures. And that, I think, is what taught me to not be so afraid of failure. I remember there was one internship I was doing. It was quite prestigious, quite high pressure, and it's a summer internship. So I only had like 8 weeks there to deliver a paper, not a full-fledged big paper, but like some small thesis for my project. And I was working with these very, very finicky neurons. Scientists will know they are very, very high maintenance. And my neurons, they were not having it. They would die, they would not show any of the biomarkers, and the experiment that I was running to get data would take a week. So if you do the math, I had 8 weeks or 8 attempts, and all of the attempts up until attempt 7 failed. But I was like, you know what? We're just going to keep trying. I would adjust a little variable, one at a time, and just keep going. I did start to panic, I think, at week 6.5 when I was like, oh man, I also have to write up a paper and a PowerPoint presentation, huh? And I finally, thank goodness, I did get successful data like week 7.5. And then I had like an all-nighter to write the paper. But that really taught me like how to adapt and approve and just try. Like adapt, approve, improve, delivering often, iterate, learn from feedback. So wet lab research is what made me really interested, as I said, in what we call in the tech world agile, which is just, I mean, I don't want to get into the details of agile. It can be quite academic, but it basically is this framework where it's like, build something that's minimally viable, send it out, get feedback on it. If people don't like it, take that feedback, try again. If people love it, what can you do to make it even better? So that college experience really informed my work here at Creo. But for clinical research, day to day, I actually worked as a joint role. So I was a medical assistant and a clinical research coordinator. That was fun because as a medical assistant in the medical practice, I would see real life patients. Like they would come in for actual medical issues. But what was cool is because that clinic was a dual clinic and a clinical research site, we could say, like, oh, let's say you've got eczema. We actually have a trial for a new eczema drug. Would you be interested in enrolling and seeing if that helps? And so then I would shift and put on my clinical research coordinator hat.
Mm-hmm.
I would start the enrollment process, screen them, consent them, of course. And then it was really awesome because a lot of the trials that I did were what we call long-term extensions. So they've already got the treatment, it's worked, and basically the trial is just now seeing, does this work for the next 15 years, hypothetically, just to make sure that there's longevity? So this patient is getting basically free therapy for the long term. And all they have to do is just check into our clinic once a month and we'll be like, you good? Great. Here's a refill. See you next week.
Wow. Gosh, that's so interesting. It's just, you always forget, at least I always forget, how much work obviously goes into these medicines, these creams, these potions that we are ingesting, potions
I
that
love
we're
that.
ingesting and putting and helping and using to help us throughout our lives. And yeah, you forget all about all the different people that are involved in that process. It's so fascinating. Looking at your career so far, why did you want to do this? Why did you want to get into research, get into the medical field? I know you mentioned your mum briefly, but what's the draw to this space?
Really, I have to thank my family. My mom, she was an MD, PhD in neurology. My dad's an engineer. My grandparents were renowned chemists. And so I've always been very interested in science. I thought that that would go in the direction of being a doctor. I did a bit of a pivot. So I'm very grateful to still be in this space. I get to talk to doctors and nurses. I get to talk to healthcare providers every day, and I still get to speak that language a little bit. But it feels really good to be making an impact on an industry that I care so much about.
Final little section before I let you go. Firstly, if someone is listening to this and thinking, that sounds awesome, I want to get into health tech, I want to be also having an impact on this field, what would you tell them?
I would tell them move quickly, but move with intention. And I guess to expand on that, something I learned when I was training to be in sales is you always sell on value, not price. You sell by telling the other person, this is the value that I provide to you. This is the problem that I solve for you. And you should never be afraid to ask for what you want as long as your work and your results can speak for itself. So, if we kind of look back on my 3 years of progressive experience at Creo, I am somebody at my core relentlessly eager to build and very, very curious. So I started off as that live chat agent, and we talked about over the course of, I don't know, 2,000 plus hours on live chat, troubleshooting, reproducing, resolving issues. I'd earned an intricate level of Creo product knowledge. I took that knowledge and I went to my manager, who, fantastic manager, thank you so much, owe him my career thus far. But I straight up asked my manager, we need to have a support team. We can't just keep, it would be better if we had a specialized, dedicated support team. We can't just keep pulling everybody's attention. And you know what? I just put my name in this slot. I was like, you know what? By the way, while we're drawing up this org chart, I would like to be that support team lead. And I did that by showing how my product knowledge and my existing people management leadership skills could solve that problem for the company. After a while, as we grew, hey, people are asking for like really in-depth trainings and consultations. Wouldn't it be really nice if there was somebody whose whole job is just to focus on brainstorming creative solutions? You know what? I went back to my manager, I drew up another org chart, and I put my name there. And then, of course, once we expanded, it was like, hey, me doing all these demos, not scalable. Let's have a whole team. I put my name as team lead again. I admit I could not have done this at a bigger company, but working at a startup that was more flexible has given me a really unique approach to career growth. And for that, I'm deeply, forever grateful to Creo. So my career advice to the listener, if you want to break into health tech, ask for what you want. Know what your next step is going to be. Sell on value, demonstrate your value, and make it really, really easy and obvious for the decision maker to give it to you. Think about what career capital do you have right now. I started working as a support agent with literally zero tech experience, nothing. So, what career capital do you have right now? So many of my skills I built as an undergrad, bartending or teaching mixology with Lacey.
Yeah.
So I promise you that you have valuable insights and career capital If you don't hear it from someone today, let it be me. I see you. I see how hard you're working. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to translate your skills into the career you really want, into the side hustle or the podcast you really want to start. The secret is nobody asks. Most people just don't ask. So be bold about learning, demonstrating value, and I promise you doors will open.
I could not agree more with everything that you just said, and honestly need to internalize it for myself and have worked hard. And I will be honest, I'm still working hard to take that on board and to understand indeed what your career capital is and what you should ask for. Because you are so right. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you should be in an environment where you are learning. You should be in an environment where you can ask and be bold. I do want to look at your career from a slightly different lens and ask you about this, for this advice. Again, you've spoken so positively and you have been so purposeful with every decision you've made in your career. But has there been a mistake? Is there something that you wish you did? Is there a piece of advice you wish you had when you are now doing this retrospective on your own career?
I think the advice that I wish somebody had given younger me, and the advice that I'm giving to you, the listener now, you win or you learn. You never, ever lose. And what I mean by that is when Lacey and I first met, I was pursuing a pre-med education. I really wanted to go to medical school. But I've learned after a lot of reflection and unpacking that I wasn't pursuing pre-med for the right reasons. So for background context, I am an immigrant, immigrant family, and coming here, it was frankly terrifying. And I latched on to the formula that worked. So again, going back to the Giovanna Rise founder episode, she talked a lot about how she thought that study hard, get A, like that's a formula that we can trust. And she had a dance teacher break that form. A great episode. Just go listen to it. I'm spoiling it.
I love the plug for this episode. It is really a great episode.
If I may make one more plug, Lacey wrote something in her Substack. So go subscribe to the Substack.
But you were just truly doing all my work for me today. I'm like handing over the mic. Here you go.
But it really struck home for me when you wrote, you love hearing about the messy parts of a career, the layoffs nobody talks about, the 10 million job interviews, the embarrassing number of cry sessions. Mm-hmm. I was so attached to this formula because, again, going back, in a new country, barely speak this language, English. English is such a messed up language, but I digress.
It is the most ridiculous language. Continue.
Ridiculous. And I latched onto work hard, get good grade, go to good college, go to doctor's school. And I'm oversimplifying it. And look, I live on Columbia Medical School campus, so I have such respect for our healthcare heroes. I just knew it wasn't for me in my gut. But I never quit because I was so afraid to pivot. I was so scared of disappointing people. I was so scared of starting over. I was so scared of making the wrong choice. It was so intimidating to want to try something else. And I learned, though, that staying in something just because you're afraid to leave is its own kind of mistake. So, and I have this moment, it's cliche, but I do believe that the universe whispers until it screams. So even though I've had this whisper of like, this is not for you. Like, I like science, but I wasn't thinking like maybe there's other ways I can apply the scientific method. The day I got my scream, I was working as I mentioned, a medical assistant. So I clocked into the clinic. I clocked in like before 5 a.m. I started a surgery. I was assisting in a surgery by 5 a.m. And, I was by 6 a.m., I was covered in somebody's blood. And we kept seeing patients, and I was falling behind on my patient notes, and I had my clinical research work. I didn't clock out that night until 11 p.m. And I was sitting side by side with my investigator. She was still working on notes, And I just had that moment of looking at her like, as much as I deeply respect you and the work that we do, and I do truly, I loved our patients and I loved getting to work with them, but it had been a year. I didn't realize how burned out I was. And I was just like, I don't want this. Like 40 years into the future, that this is not, as much as I love this for her and I respected her, my investigator, this is not the life that I wanted for myself. And it just really shocked me in that moment. I remember it with such vivid detail. So I let myself try something different. It led me to this work that I really, truly love. I had already submitted medical school applications to like 20 something medical schools.
Wow.
I had spent over a year studying for the MCAT and quitting, like emailing all of those medical schools to be like, hey, I'm withdrawing my application. Don't bother reading it. Just quitting and taking a leap of faith. It really taught me that no time is wasted if you learned something. Be honest with yourself. Just be really, really honest with yourself about what it is that you want. Sometimes you just really have to let go of the path that you thought you were supposed to take to find one that actually really belongs to you. So you win or you learn, you never lose. That mindset has shaped every single risk and pivot that I've taken since. And one more advice. This is not financial advice. This is just for past me, so nobody else. Please Google target date fund, Google high yield savings account, Google what a Roth IRA is. This is not financial advice. I just need past me to hear it.
Nah. Honestly, so real. The best move I made for my money was moving into a high yield savings account.
Way to go.
1000%. Going back to all the incredible advice you just gave, you are so right. It really is about having the confidence to take the leap, to make that decision, to make the switch. And it can be so hard to face that. And I've emphasized this on previous episodes. You are going to do this for the rest of your life, whether you are living to work or working to live. Whatever you are doing, you are working for the rest of your life. Don't ever be afraid to make the switch that will make you happy. And maybe that is moving to a job that does have you working their hours because you want to work those hours.
Yep.
Or maybe it's the opposite. Like, make the decision that makes you happy, because I think it's a fear of mine, and I'm sure it's a fear of others, that you'd get to the end and you'd be like, why didn't I do this? And that's why I keep holding on to this podcast, because I'm like, I don't want to get to the end and be like, oh, I could have just worked a little bit harder on top of my full-time job and created this resource that could be so useful to other people. And maybe that's the only thing that it is. Maybe it launches me into something else in my life. I don't know. But like, don't end it with regret. Like, have that confidence. So anyway, I'm just reaffirming exactly what you said, because I so believe in that ethos and that message. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You have given us so much advice. I have learned so much from you about the health tech space, about being a product owner, about all of the wonderful things that you've done. Final question for you, Amelia. What's next?
I've been waiting for this. As a fangirl of this podcast, I just got goosebumps. What's next? Two-pronged answer. For Creo, our big focus, two of our big focuses are interoperability and internationalization. So by interoperability, you've entered your subject data into our electronic portal. Now what? Well, we want to play nice with the other systems so that you don't have to manually send this data somewhere. Maybe you can just pick a sponsor portal, have the information be sent directly to that sponsor, or integrate with more vendors that handle recruitment, finance, all that fun stuff. We really want to just be in the ecosystem and make it as easy as possible for the end user to get their data and not worry about, making sure it's going to the right place. Internationalization, clinical trials are global. So we are making efforts into translating a lot of our stuff into many different languages. We are just so excited to see what the future holds for Creo. For me, I'm so happy with where I am. And I just started as product owner this year. So just, remember, never be afraid to try something before you're ready. I know I've already said this, but your taste will always be higher than your ability at first. That is so normal. My taste for what I want Creo to do far exceeds my capabilities as a baby product owner at this point. But I trust that if you keep showing up, you're going to close that gap. The only way to get good at something is to just start. So go build, go ask questions, go make a mess, and have a lot of fun doing it. Thank you so much for having me, Lacey.
Oh my gosh, truly thank you. This has been incredible. I cannot express how much I've learned from you and how much I deeply appreciate your time, but also all your advice. And I know my many, many listeners will enjoy it too. I am so impressed by everything that you're doing, and I can't wait to see you continue to learn, continue to grow, build your opportunities for yourself. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting ride for you for sure.
Thank you, Lacey.